every athlete, every person, every human being has an opportunity. Some opportunities don't come when you want them. But if you're prepared, good opportunities can happen. Always be ready, because you never know when your number is going to get called.
I'm not coming back.
EMIY Apparel. Encourage me. I'm young.
Calvin T. Mann, leading EMIY, served over 20,000 youth through speaking, coaching, and mentoring. He has inspired us for years. Welcome to EMIY TV Podcast with your host, Calvin T. Mann, the Encourager.
And his assistant.
I'm sorry.
My engineer is queuing me up. So welcome. Were you expecting only Calvin T. Mann today? Well, sorry to disappoint you. You are in the good company of Hetheru and our fabulous engineer, Monique. So we're going to hold it down today. We're going to hold it down today while Calvin gets his sneezing under control. These sinuses have really shifted him for a couple hours until he's able to get his sneezes under control. So because of that, you're stuck with us, okay? But today we really have a great conversation. It's something that has really been kind of on my mind. So for some of you who know, I have a background in workforce development. And so I have been a trainer, facilitator in this area for a number of years. Too many to actually share with you, because once you start getting beyond 25, I think you can start counting those years and just say that you've had some experience, that you're seasoned in this area. I think 20 years is a good measure for seasoning in this area. So, but one of the things I used to talk about to the trainees and people who were preparing themselves for a new role in workforce development, I used to talk about this concept called ground zero. And I'm going to come back and talk about a well-rounded individual, which is the topic of our, and he came with a bow. Which is the topic of our discussion today. And I used to talk about this concept of ground zero, helping people to kind of get a position of where you are. This is not about intelligence. This is not about intellect. This is about being a well-rounded individual and being able to compete in this world as one who has as much of who they are where it is recognized in public, right? And so when we talk about this idea of a well-rounded individual, I started to dig a little bit deeper. You know, I am not as connected to all the catch and trending phrases that often come associated with a new mindset or a shift in the paradigm or some new learning style that's been, lifted up by a community of people who have the same language, right? So, but I did look a little bit deeper on a couple of things. So one of the phrases that we're going to talk about and add to today is called personal effectiveness. Personal effectiveness. But overall, we're still talking about a well-rounded individual. And we're going to use the concept of ground zero as a baseline, okay, for what a well-rounded individual looks like as they're scaling up. And so you are very distracting. Do you know that?
Maybe I was born this way.
So I'm not going to lose my thought because Calvin is trying to distract me. So I want to talk about this term personal effectiveness. So this is from, I love to do research. So this is from one of the articles that speaks to the fundamentals of being a well-rounded person. So this particular definition for personal effectiveness speaks to it being the power of positive thinking. It comes from the concept of positive psychology, and it also is a part of this new thought movement, right? And so we're talking about personal effectiveness being some of an approach, basically, of positive thinking, but also looking at different principles of management, of self-governance, self-regulation, how you experience the world, what do you do to stay connected, to stay knowledgeable. And as we always talk about, this is Put Your Family First podcast. So we're going to talk about how this personal effectiveness even starts at home, where it comes from, how we develop it, and who's really helping to develop it as you're growing up in a household. So it depends on a couple of things. One, it talks about your innate characteristics. It talks about your talent, experience, and the process of personal development. So the term, again, is personal effectiveness. So it also includes experiences, knowledge, skills that we acquire, and the process of learning. And knowledge is acquired for setting goals, defining an action plan to achieve them, and also the skills that help you to perform whatever the plan is that you come up with. And we're going to talk just kind of basic first around the things that we learn at home, right? So as kids, personally, I can say that I'm not being biased that my mom is in the studio with us right now. She's kind of sitting off in the background listening. I'm sure she's going to start pointing her finger at me in a minute. But how the things that you learn as a child in your home kind of impact and shape how you learn and how you become. It shapes your self-image, your identity. It shapes how you think about things, how you see yourself. So some of these basic things that we're taught become an innate part of us. So it's something that becomes natural. We respond to it very naturally. We kind of on autopilot when we're responding to things, especially if you have siblings. So if you have siblings, that's another layer of shaping your identity, shaping how you feel about yourself, shaping how you learn and how you grow and how you become. In addition to our parents and our grandparents, our neighbors. So our whole, I love this word, ecosystem helps to shape who we are becoming, especially at school, in the classroom. All of these different areas when you're younger help to shape who you become, your personal effectiveness. And so as you grow, as you start to become who you were destined to be, some of the things that we learn about rules and boundaries, we learn about how we use our words, what we say, how we respond, our behavior, all those kinds of things also impact our personal effectiveness long term. And the reason why I would talk to my students in classes about ground zero is that we have to establish a baseline. Just about anything that we do is some form of measurement. In a grade school, you had grades. You had, early on, you just had, I think it's just not even E's. You had A's and B's and C's and D's, but early on, you just had a pass or fail type of grade, proficient or not proficient. Early on, they give you those types of grades. But even those things are a measure to help you to understand if you're moving forward, if you're not progressing to the degree that you should be progressing, or if you are not progressing according to the movement of most of the people in your class. Just setting some benchmarks so that there's some way to gauge whether you're improving or not improving.
You have a call.
One of our partners is for a debt consolidation loan of up to $80,000.
And they're calling in with the info.
A debt consolidation, for sure.
Right, 1-800 cancel your debt.
Just trying to get me off my track, my train of thought. First it was Calvin, now it's the telemarketer. All right, so in this idea of personal effectiveness, I want to talk about 7 practices. Right, the first one is determination. So these are some of the things that are shaped by our environment. This is shaped at home first, It's shaped by siblings. It's shaped by parents and grandparents. It's shaped by neighbors, and it goes off into school. And it's shaped in school. It's shaped by teachers. It's shaped by other students, right? And then it's also measured. And school is measured by grades. At home, it's measured by whether you get in trouble or not. Right? Are you being punished or rewarded for what you're doing or not doing? And with siblings, it's if you're on somebody's nerves or not on somebody's nerves. Is it a good day for you guys? So those kind of things help to shape, set up a measure. And the measure that we're going to eventually get back to is this measure of ground zero. So here are some of the things that help us to establish our personal effectiveness. The first one is determination, and it talks about your focus on achieving a goal without being distracted by less important things. It also talks to how important self-discipline is in that process of determination. The second one it talks about is self-confidence, and it speaks to the awareness of yourself, your actions, and consequences. It talks about how it's manifested in your speaking, your appearance, how you dress, and your physical body. And it talks about developing it through your capabilities, your attitude, and how you perform things. So how you perform it, the level of how you perform different things. The third one is persistence. It is the thing that keeps you moving regardless of the circumstance or obstacles that might be presented before you. The fourth one is managing stress. And I thought that was a really interesting thing to help shape your personal effectiveness. But it talks about stress in terms of uncertainty around things that you are experiencing. That's a large part of the stress that shapes you. And then also the managing stress, which is about the consequences of your actions. So your decisions and choices, whether you think they're good, bad, or indifferent, that is part of the stress that helps to shape us. Number 5 is problem solving skills. So your ability to cope with a new issue that arises, and the experience that you have to be able to do that use the coping mechanisms. 6 is called creativity. Creativity is another a factor in personal effectiveness, in that it helps you to find, they call it extraordinary ways to resolve or to address a problem or a situation. And then last is generating ideas. Your ability to use unconventional thinking to come up with new ways to pursue an idea, a goal, or whatever your next level might be. And so I was really excited about learning more about personal effectiveness and how it's actually shaped by our environment, kind of where you start. You had something you wanted to add, Calvin?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Calvin.
Good afternoon. How's everything?
Oh, moving right along. Thank you.
I don't know. I don't know if I can pull off too many of these Mondays with back-to-back mentoring. Right? You're talking about personal effectiveness and well-rounded. Mm-hmm. I'm round. But, mentoring takes a lot of energy out of you.
For sure.
And I know that has nothing to do with your well-rounded conversation.
Well, actually, it does. That's a important component of it too. But yes,
it is something that comes to my mind that I'm forwarding you that you need to take immediate action on. I know this don't have nothing to do with your well-rounded conversation, but I'm making sure that you get it now. I'm bringing it to your attention so you can take care of that. Right?
Couldn't wait 45 minutes?
No. No, it couldn't wait 45 minutes because when you get out, that's the first thing I want you to take care of. If you don't mind.
Wow.
A well-rounded person, as we go ahead and do your thing. I'll add later.
What you gonna do with him, Monique? Don't you have some kind of reaction for him?
Wah, wah, wah.
Okay, that would do. That would do. So
I don't know why you say that would do. That we need to make a sound.
it was a reaction. Maybe help you recenter and
get on your pages.
yes, that sounds right.
Okay, I'm here. I'm with you.
Okay, great. Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about ground zero being a measure of where you are, where you want to go, and how you use your personal effectiveness to get there. And we're talking about well-rounded individuals. So how do we become that real well-rounded individual? We have to have a perspective, and we have to have a starting place. And so we're going to use the ground zero as a baseline for starting. And then some things are under ground zero. So that means some things you have to work your way up to just become at that ground zero level. And then some things that you need to continue to grow to get beyond the ground zero level. And so when you think about things that equalize the playing field, we started at home, right? And so when we talk about things that equalize the playing field, we're always talking about kids need both parents. Kids need a village. So that means it goes beyond just the immediate family. It goes to the intergenerational relationships of grandparents and uncles and great aunts, and those people are part of our extended family. And so somewhere in those spaces, when we have a parent that might be absent for whatever reasons, our village is supposed to be the ones that step up and kind of fill in the gaps. Now, nobody can replace. We're not talking about replace at all. We're talking about just help fill in the gaps. Meet people where they are and make sure that they have enough support and leverage to continue to build and grow. And they have that safe space to do that. So that's a huge piece of identifying where you are in terms of your ground zero. So ideally, let's say that we want both mom and dad in the household. That could be biological mom and dad. Maybe that's a step parent. Maybe that's a godparent. Maybe it's a grandparent. But having that gap that is met for that family, for that child, is super important to first even reaching ground zero. Because the lack of having our family in that proper space and having those gaps met in a way that is healthy and sustainable for a child, we have to make sure that we're doing that, and we're doing that to the best of our ability. And so sometimes that means that our personal viewpoints, our personal opinions, our feelings sometimes have to be reevaluated to prioritize our children. And because it may be true that you didn't get along with another parent, a mother or father. You didn't have a good relationship. It was a bad breakup, those kinds of things. But we still have to be able to pause that emotion to lift up what's best for that child, what's best for those children. And so we have to start there at ground zero. So that's both the child and the parent. The child has no real input on that component, but the adults who are present and making these decisions and choices have an opportunity to set at least that precedent of a ground zero for their child or their children. So that's kind of where we start, right? Then we build the value systems. If you are left with very few values, then that puts you below ground zero. That means you don't even have the basic, let's just say humanity, some issues around humanity to be able to recognize empathy or compassion, or recognize when somebody is hurt or hurting, or that you have hurt them. If you don't have that that value, that capability, then again, that puts you below ground zero. That means you have to work your way up, and people have to be around you to help you build those skill sets up until you reach ground zero, where you are at a point of knowing That is really important in this process of being and becoming a well-rounded individual, having tools for personal effectiveness. Now, personal effectiveness starts above ground zero. Let me make sure that's clear. All the things that we've been talking about so far have been about what's above ground zero, meaning that these are basics, the basic fundamentals that you already have. Like we talked about determination, we talked about creativity, we talked about those things. Those are what is above ground zero. So if those are a part of who you are, then that's a part of your personal effectiveness. You are on the upswing. Okay, so there's still some of us who are still building our way up, even as adults. We're still building our way up to some basic human needs, some basic human values, being considerate of others. That's a basic human need. That's empathy and compassion, right? If we don't have that, we're still building, and the people around us, even if we're adults, have to help shape those things in us. So, and I'll give you, to me, this is a huge thing, and it may not be such a big thing for others, but the fact that, one, that marijuana use is so free, but it seems to be no compassion or empathy for those who are making a choice not to smoke. Because I'm in my car, you're in your car, your marijuana smoking interferes and enters my car with me, my children are in the car. I don't want to have to smell your weed smoke. And so even rolling up my window and you rolling up your window and you have a child in your car, what are we thinking? So I'd like to think that in terms of our values, that's compassion, that's consideration. Those are things that we gain to reach above ground zero. Those of us, and this could just be in this particular area of your life, but we're talking about how do we become a well-rounded individual. That means that we, as these things may not be above ground zero, we need to be shaping each other to reach that ground zero state, to have enough compassion, empathy, respect, consideration for somebody else, that your activities don't have a direct impact or influence on them. That's where we need to go. And so, and in just that one area, there's a huge difference. Even because now it's in your clothes, you carry that into the market, you carry that into the school, you carry that into the daycare center, you carry that scent with you wherever you're going now. Again, consideration, all of those types of things to talk to us about being personal, having personal effectiveness, right? And again, that is above ground zero. The learning of it is below ground zero. How do we help each other move above ground zero and understand that these are basic human concepts? These are basic human values. And so that's not about your choice whether you smoke or not. It's about how it affects others. That is where you may need more work to get above ground zero, because it still hasn't impacted you in a way that you understand it impacts others without their permission. So, would you like to comment, Calvin?
Well, you had me, but I think before then we can go to the commercial.
We played the commercial. You missed it. We kicked off with it. I love that commercial.
Oh, y'all hating. I didn't even wait.
No, we weren't expecting you, actually.
Oh, okay. So, to add, I think it's foundational.
For sure.
Right? I think this is the reason why we have to pivot, baby. It's foundational. The significance of every child getting a solid foundation is important, not only to the marketplace, to the culture. Everybody can't be a millionaire. Everybody can't be the chief. Everybody can't be CEO. Everybody can't be a boss. There are positions for everybody.
Sure.
How do you get a well-rounded person in this demographic, right? It takes some of the things that you're about to share, but a well-rounded person, I think people need to understand, and I mean this sincerely. Back in the day, Monique, we called it fronting, right? LL Cool J did a song, right? Right? And everybody's like, yeah, well, I'm fronting, right? Riding around town, it's constantly fronting. Some LL Cool J, right? And so what has happened is that authentic behavior is frowned upon. And we got a society and everyone that's fronting, but the authentic behavior is frowned upon. And you have to, being authentic means you have to move a certain way, because as she's espousing here, that a well-rounded person takes a certain amount of tools, right? And I think the people need to understand what it takes to have a well-rounded person. How about that?
For sure, and that's a huge part of why our home and our family is so important. And I'm just gonna talk about these are
before you go. I know you're tired of me. Before you go, right? November. Tell everybody about November 17th.
Well, thank you, Calvin. I was looking for a better segue than in the middle of.
And now, November 17th.
So, thank you, Calvin, for reminding me to share with our listening audience that on Friday, November 17th, we are hosting a Women's Wholeness Summit called Revealing Your Blind Spots. And so it is an opportunity for women, mothers, and grandmothers in particular to come together and do look at what healing is, look at how we're doing it, and then assess how effective we are. Are we seeing the change that we need to see in our family, in ourselves first, in our families, in our communities? Are we seeing the change, and are we a part of that change that we need to see? It's a way to do a level of self-assessment. It's also a way to recommit to who you want to become, who you are, who you're destined to be. This is a safe space to be able to take those next steps, use the tools and the resources that are going to be provided there, and some of the life lessons to be able to help you to continue to build. Like we're talking about this ground zero. If you've already reached your plateau where you have moved as far as you can go by yourself, without new information, without new tools, without new levels of commitment, this is the space that you should be a part of on that day. It's limited seating, and we have where that number is climbing and that window is closing. So we will going to lose seats far before November 17th. So the sooner you sign up, the better. You can go to my website, which is www.yourinspiredjourney.com. and look for events, and then you'll just click on that link that says register here and put in your seats for that amazing event. It is an event that the only charge is what you commit to for yourself. We need for you to commit to this. We say that it's no financial charge or obligation to you, but it is not free. We use that word free loosely just to say that there's no financial cost to you, but it is cost. It costs your time, it costs your energy, and it costs your appreciation. So we need for you to be there, and to be there to occupy a space that you are needed in, because we need everybody coming out of that summit with a new mindset, with a mindset for, I'm here to do my part. I'm stepping up. I can't go back to where I was before the event. I'm this new tool right now. And so that's who we're looking for to join us. And we're also looking, even after that event, to fill in the gap of, where do I go for new information? Where do I go for resources and tools? How do I belong to a sister group that helps support this type of belief system? How do I find out what's coming in our community that really affects me to help me to grow? How do I volunteer? Who do I support? All of that will be funneled into an app that you're able to become a free member for, that has a lot of resources moving forward. The biggest issue for me, as I have been involved in several women's groups and circles and initiatives, is that after an event like this and after our events, there's often a gap. There's nowhere to connect again. And connect immediately, because sometimes we need that help right away. So that is a large part of what this Women's Wholeness Summit is about. And
good. I'm saying that the Monday, November 13th, you're inviting all of your panelists, presenters for the podcast.
Oh. Right, that's gonna be exciting. There are so many dynamic speakers that are going to be and facilitators that are going to be a part of this summit. It's all of the, not all, but so many of the women that I know who are practicing this work, who are making a difference, who are sharing their lives and opening up their stories, so that you can see it was done over time. It wasn't something that happened overnight. And so the expectation is not for you to grow and become who you are set to be overnight, but to know that there is a path. And there are those who want to support you in this journey. So we need for you to be there. We need for you to show up, both inside of your family, inside of your circles, but also outside, because what we're seeing as a community, we can no longer accept. We can no longer accept what's happening with our children. We can no longer accept what's happening with even just your property. We can no longer accept what's happening in politics. That day is done. We have to move. We have to move on these things so that we can heal and we can move. And so Calvin is getting me all fired up. He knows this is just huge for me. This is huge, and I have reached my threshold.
I asked one question.
My threshold. So,
okay, now back to.
And now you wanted me to go back to being calm. That's so unfair, isn't it? Okay, so I'm gonna try to dial it down a little bit. Dial it down. Although, all of the things that we talk about is already interconnected. And so I'm going to step back a moment to this idea of ground zero and acknowledging that all of us have work in some area to help us get above ground zero. The goal is not to stay where you are. The goal is to grow. And I'm going to share with you that some of the practices that were taught in our homes early on, this is where the basic foundation of these things exist, is what we are teaching at home and what we have been taught as children in our homes, and how that's shaped our lives now. So I'm going to drop another 9 personal effectiveness tools that we need to, not only that we're shaping our children, but that we may have to go back and relearn to help us to be a well-rounded individual. So I'm going to start backwards because I like doing that sometimes. I'm starting at number 9. One of the tools for the foundation principles that we need for personal effectiveness is lifelong learning. That means that you're committed to learn. You're committed to grow. So that means that you're reading. That means that you're researching. That means that you're listening. That means that you're questioning. That means that you're digging deeper. Lifelong learning is not limited to a formal education. Lifelong learning says that you have a desire to know, I have a desire to know and be better. I have a desire to know, be better, and grow from the information that I gain. I'm not going to sit on it. I'm going to talk about it in conversations. I'm going to incorporate it in my life. That's lifelong learning, because that's lifelong living. Okay, so that's number 9. Number 8 is being flexible. Being flexible. Okay, so sometimes, we may not be as flexible as we could be. And I'm not just talking about physical, like doing the splits and that kind of stuff. I'm talking about flexible in terms of I'll stay home and I'll make sure that the kids get off before, get off to school or have breakfast. And then I'll forego my Starbucks coffee today, or I'll forego, I'll put my workout at the end of the day as opposed to the beginning of the day. That's just being flexible to make sure that whatever needs to happen in your household, happen with your children, happen with you, that you have the desire to want to make it work. Flexibility helps us to make things work and work better, where it may be a little bit uncomfortable. It may be a little bit out of your way, but it's still room to do that where there is no harm really caused. Okay, that's part of flexibility. Number 7 is being adaptable. How do you become adaptable? So being adaptable speaks to your ability to change and shift based on what's needed. I need to adapt to having a newborn in the house. That's being adaptable. You may not have a lot of choice, but it can be more difficult the more you make it difficult. If you complain and constantly, talk about what's not working for you, instead of being more adaptable, saying that, okay, this is our new way of living. It takes 10 to 21 days to form a new habit. I have to get through this difficult state. And so being adaptable is recognizing that it takes time to change. It takes time to be accustomed to a new way of thinking, a new lifestyle. So that's really important. Number 6 is being reliable. Being reliable. So people often talk about the difference between being dependable and being reliable. So when you are reliable, it is part of your lifestyle. It's a lifestyle choice, and it's a constant choice. It kind of fits in that gap. A person that is reliable is one that fits in the gap. So if you're called upon, you can make a good decision about how it best serves you and the person who's asking. So that's one way to look at it. And then the second is, number 5 is actually being dependable. Being dependable is somebody that shows up. And shows up most of the time on time.
Called depends.
Or that's holding it together too, isn't it? Right. And so number 4, again, remember, these are things that are shaped in our childhood, shaped in our home. So number 4 is initiative. How is initiative shaped in you? And how was it shaped in you when you were growing up? And how are you now shaping it in your children or in your family? Initiative means that you don't have to wait for somebody to tell you what to do, especially when it's something that's done routinely. So initiative might be, I'm getting up early to make breakfast to make it easier for somebody else. So to make it easier for mom and dad, maybe I'm making cereal for everybody because I can't cook yet. Maybe I am taking out the trash. I'm doing that thing that needs to be done without being told to do it, because I recognize that it needs to be done. So bravo and a high applause to neighbors who are raking people's leaves, because they know that maybe they're not able to get to it, or they know that it will help relieve the burden of just being able to rake somebody else's leaves. For somebody to cut your grass, for somebody to, pull your garbage can to the side of the house versus leaving it on the curb. Initiative. Those are things that are of value and that brings high esteem to you. Number 3 is professionalism. So how are we taught professionalism at home? One of the ways that we're taught is just having good manners. Good manners. Please, thank you, may I, how can I help you? Not being so self-centered. being professional, the way that you do what you do, that you put care and consideration in what you do, is part of a level of professionalism. How you present what you're doing, how you present yourself, a lot of that is a part of professionalism. And then 2, which is one of my favorite words, is integrity. And we speak to integrity being how you respond, make choices and decisions, whether somebody is there or not. What you do when you think somebody is watching versus when you think nobody is watching. Do you still have the same behavior or attitude? Will you still throw the trash on the ground, whether you think somebody is watching or not? Will you still, take somebody's lunch out of the refrigerator because nobody sees you doing it and you have a plausible, deniable excuse to say that it wasn't you? Integrity is really important, and I think that it's again one of those things that shapes you, that you're shaped at home, right? I recall that my parents when they set rules in place, the expectation was that you were going to follow that rule, and in the case you didn't, there was a consequence. Typically it was a whooping, sometimes it was a punishment, sometimes you lost a privilege. Whatever that was to help you to recognize that there are consequences to your behaviors. Whether somebody sees you or not is still consequences, and the expectation is that eventually you'll be able to self-govern, self-regulate how you do what you do and who you are, and your word actually have meaning. And finally, the last thing that we're taught as a foundation principle is interpersonal skills. Interpersonal skills. How do you get along with someone else? How do you communicate? Are you able to share your thoughts and your reactions? Are you able to negotiate? Are you able to communicate in a way that people understand, believe, and can listen to what you're saying, can follow you? Interpersonal skills are really important, and that's one of the things that we have to be careful, and especially as we're developing our young people, our teenagers, our young adults. That interpersonal skill and that integrity is huge. They're huge. I think, to me, above all of them, outside of lifelong learning, those 2, to me, I think are the biggest steps that we have to continue to build and push people up that ladder of understanding. I think those are 2 ways that we can really affect our children and our environment.
I think you get more out of pulling than pushing.
Do you?
Yep. Pulling means I ask for it. Pushing means you're forcing. I reached my hand out and I pulled you up. You're hesitant, I pushed you up. Both are equally as important, but pulling means you took the initiative.
And I guess you can see it that way too. Because I'm thinking pulling, that means you're pulling somebody against their will. Like they're resistant to what you're doing. So you're saying in terms of a hand up, extending your hand out to someone that.
Yeah, because again, everything that you said, integrity, we do this stuff every day. Right? And integrity, most definitely, is up there.
It has to be.
It has to.
It has to continue to be pushed higher and higher on that above ground zero.
Yeah, determination helps your resilience.
Yes, for sure.
You got to be determined.
For sure.
It's funny. Was talking the other day, and my man say, "Oh man, Cal, you all the things you." I say, "Man." He said, "Man, I thought long time ago it was over for you." He said, "But what I have come to understand is that you're determined about these boys." I said, "You made my day, because if you can see that, that means you've been paying attention." That made my day.
I can see that. You started to worry me for a minute. I'm like, oh, somebody gave up? Somebody gave up on you?
Well, no, it's not that. It's, shout out to my family going through a tough time right now. But it's all those things. It's, self-confidence, determination. It's all of those things to become a well-rounded person, and it's balance. How do you balance who you are?
Right.
And making sure that you understand that this is who you are.
We got to keep pushing above ground zero. We have to go back and look at those areas where we don't feel, and where people are giving us clues that there's some stuff that we still need to learn. There's some places that we still need to grow. And that's all of us. The idea is that if you're a lifelong learner, you're going to continue to stay open to listening and growing and looking for the answers. You're going to continue to read. You're going to continue to YouTube. You're going to continue to Google. And just to do something, but not get stuck doing nothing. Not get stuck just ignoring that somebody cares enough about you to try to push you or direct you or correct you in a way so that you can be a better person. And I know a lot of us are it's been some things that people have said about us, or have ways that people have treated us that made us feel that hurt us. Basically, it just hurt us. I'd like to even look at those things that may have hurt us and find some level of truth in it. And it's especially when you're looking at yourself, and many of you know that I've been married 3 times. So that means I've been divorced twice. I've been divorced twice.
She only been married once.
But in that, when you talk about relationships and you talk about why people break up and you have those conversations or those exchanges, I actually go back to reflect on those things because I don't want it to stay that way. Once I can pull my ego back, sit my ego over here, and then put my little little girl over here, I can actually start to sit and reflect and hear what was actually said. And what were the things that were in common that in either relationship was shared as a criticism? Can I now hear that? And so being able, it's a lot of growth. It takes a lot, because when we talk about strongholds, I always go back to the strongholds. When we talk about strongholds, when you have issues of rejection and abandonment, those are really heavy. And so it's harder to hear the areas that can help you grow when you're so defensive. And I think and for even our mothers who were raised, I'm going with mothers raising their sons, it's very difficult to hear that, you're not able to raise a son alone. Like, a healthy man or a healthy boy needs a healthy man in his life. Whether that man is grandfather or uncle or stepfather or mentor or godfather, we have to make sure that we're connecting them in the right spaces, because there are things that we don't know. We know about raising us. We know about female and female related issues. We may not know all that we need to know in that space. So we have to be open to be able to get support in that space. And then look to and then create the village that you can look to. Because sometimes we can isolate other people and tell them, no, I can do this by myself. That's not a good space. You may be able to do it by yourself, but is it healthy for you to try to do it by yourself?
Will the results be, right? Will the outcome be, right? When we take on this mantra to say that you've raised a child by yourself, and you looked at the cost, right? Mm-hmm. You only said that because it was a syndrome and because you found it to be cool, right? This is what I got to do. You got all the resources, right? Either way it go. Men, we don't have the choice at that, right? We just go, right? And that part right there that you just talked about, right? And being able to accept this thing right here, right now, that boy, you brought it home for me. That boy healthy father. If it's a father that's an uncle, if it's a father that's a cousin, if it's a father that's the biological father, if it's the father that's the grandfather, if it's the father that's the mentor, he has to have it. We have gone and we've had over 50 years of experimenting, and the outcome has only been prison, death, suicide. This is the outcome. So that boy, culturally, we got to change that.
And so let me say, the ways that we're talking about change is to put yourself on this scale. Put yourself on this scale. Are you at ground zero in your relationships with your children? Are you on ground zero in your relationships in your household? Are you there first? And so this conversation around ground zero and above and a well-rounded person, this is an opportunity to self-check, to assess where you are and look at the areas where you know you need the work. Because once you do that work, you also are improving your environment, your ecosystem, your relationships. But it takes us doing this level of self-work, identifying whether we're a well-rounded person. Are you a well-rounded person? Some of the things that we talked about today, is that a part of what your makeup, your foundation is? And if it isn't, how do you then go about getting those tools to put you above ground zero so you can thrive? You can survive is below ground zero. Thriving is above ground zero. You can use that as a measure. Are you thriving in your relationships? If you're not thriving in your relationships, then you're surviving in your relationships. And how do you make the difference? So for women, I'm going to ask you and invite you to come to our Women's Summit. This is a space where you can start that process. Work your tools, work your resources, work your network. Continue to increase that. Continue to be a lifelong learner. And again, my website is www.yourinspiredjourney.com. And you're looking for the events page, and you're going to sign up for removing or revealing your blind spots.
Awesome. Mm-hmm. You can reach me, book me now, anything boys, men, husbands, or fathers, and youth at kelvintman.com. I really want to share that while you're watching, I am building a campaign right in your face. It's happening. And I'm getting louder. And I'm going to get even louder because we have a lot of comfortableness around our boys. As families, we becoming a well-rounded person is only the beginning, because then you need a mate that's well-rounded so you can then procreate with someone who's grounded so you can produce a well-rounded child together. We got to get out of these spaces where we automatically, it's time, right? Suicide is impacted by the father, and so is infant mortality. It's amazing. Where you remove the father and suicide happens, and infant mortality and prison, and right, we can go down the line. The mother is such an intricate piece to the resilience of a child. She can make it or she can break it. She is such an intricate piece to being resilient, because her actions are seen daily in her bounce back from obstacles and things within the home. Kids need both parents. My name is Calvin Mann, signing off with the rose, the Hetheru. God bless you, and don't forget, put your family first. Peace.